Welcome, everybody. This is Trader Genius, and I'm Rob, and I'm joined by my brother Jess.
What's going on, brother?
Well, not much, man. Time for another installment to talk to some veterans out there and pick up where we left off the last time around. So, in our first conversation, we really started with the start, the adaptations and the process, the experience of getting out of the military, how it can feel scary and that's at the same time exciting. So some of the pros and cons of going through that transition, some helpful tidbits from our own journeys along that path and our own experiences. And then we talked about three key routes that most of us veterans tend to fall into when we're transitioning out of the service. So we talked about number one, education, higher education, GI Bill, and going to school, learning some kind of craft there. So formal education route, and then a career slash job slash contracting route, which is, as you said last time, a ready-made path that you could fall into. It's a well-beaten path. And then finally, we talked about striking it out on your own, and some of the pros and cons of doing that. How there can be some trepidation to entrepreneurship or starting your own business, but the kind of virtues that come, the benefits that come from going down that route, and that's what we're here to talk about today. Is that third route, really deep dive on striking it out on your own, how you can plan for it and how you can execute it in a way that doesn't really put a lot of pressure on you. You just take the reins and start, kind of commanding your own space and shape your own lifestyle. So one of the first things that I think we all, as guys who have done all three routes, and having learned from our experiences, going that strike it out on your own route really depends on the mentality you take into it and where are you aiming. Are you aiming high, or are you aiming for, hey, I just want to be another guy, a JAG, just another guy who runs his own business? So what mentality did you take towards entrepreneurship and striking it out on your own that really carried you forward and set the bar for you?
It was a realization that I tried all the other paths and they didn't work, and it was a whittling down of getting past that institutionalization and really defining what I really want. And I realized through all this process that being on my own, forging my own path, is actually what allows me to be the driver of my own success. I'm no longer having to wait on other people. I'm able to get after it and make things happen. And so realizing that really with, for instance, for trading, with what I'm doing right now, there is no ceiling. It goes and goes until you decide you don't want to do it, or you have enough, or you'd like to move on to something else. And the pace at which that happens is totally dependent on me, how well I execute a process every day, and obviously whatever the market conditions are doing. But I can only manage my success in me executing my process going forward. So really looking at, hey, this is an opportunity for me to forge my own path and to not really have a ceiling, and or at least define what that ceiling is going to be versus a pay structure within a company, or the GI Bill where you're at school. You only get so much pay, and then you go into a career. It's easy to fall in the trap of, well, I got through all this schooling, so I might as well do the career that I signed up for, because I have potentially even debt, depending on how you use your GI Bill and all that kind of stuff during the schooling. And so being able to just realize that, wait a second, I've been here before. I've done this. I did it by joining the military. That was the first step of stepping out of that mold of kind of the common path, the common man. Being able to go, hey, I'm gonna swear in, look at the flag, give it the salute, and go give Old Glory the best I can give her. And that is different than what most people are doing. When you got out, Rob, how did you feel about that idea of pushing out on your own versus going a more common or more well-beaten path?
Yeah, I knew that I was going to need some income, right? There is a problem of that, the dollars and cents, making ends meet. So I knew that working at Domino's was going to be a temporary thing, and I knew that I could approach that money problem in a different way. And I knew, we're just kind of reaching back to what you said, brother. Like when I went in the Marines, it was the non-standard route also. And so I wasn't settling at that point either. I didn't settle for, oh, the normal is everybody goes to college or goes and gets a job, flips burgers, whatever it is. So I started my Marine Corps career that way, and I ended it that way too. I went through a lot and grew a lot throughout my Marine Corps experience, especially in those combat environments. So I wasn't about to just settle and not leverage all of that personal growth that I had done. I felt honestly lucky to have made it through pretty much unscathed. Not a lot of broken bones or scars on the outside. So I didn't want to waste that. I wanted to further leverage that and not settle for what everybody else is doing or kind of the norm that is accepted. Which that is the well-beaten path is settling, and I know there's an inadequacy feeling. We talked about that in our last conversation. Um, that hey, I don't know everything about the environment I'm entering, the civilian world, so there's a fear response, a stress response about it. But in reality, I know I had built up a skill set that was undeniably and basically couldn't be equivocated anywhere else in the civilian world. It was just a matter of taking everything that was in my rucksack along that long march over those 9 years, inventorying it, taking a long halt, take a minute and just go through your ruck and seeing what's going to be helpful on the other side of that transition. Um, it's really easy to take that easy path and just go for somebody else is more than willing to do what the military did in the first place. Hand you a rucksack with, hey, this is all the gear you need. This is the path. Go ahead and walk it because they'll benefit from that too. Talk about college recruiters and stuff. Um, but what's more meaningful? I mean, you were talking about it before, like a homemade meal. Is that a more meaningful thing, or is it the convenience of out of the box hungry man dinner? Which one's more meaningful, and which one kind of fulfills your lifestyle more?
Yeah, not only meaningful, but the quality. So, if you make your own meal or your mom does, and you know that those are quality ingredients made with love, all that good, sweet stuff, versus a hungry man that you just, flip off the plastic, stick it in the microwave for 3 minutes. You don't know the quality of that. Sure, it's a convenience thing, it's simple. And again, you're settling. And we all, depending on our situations, cut corners in different areas of our life for that convenience or for that settling. So it's just an example that if you really love your homemade brownies or your mom's homemade brownies, why would you settle for out of the box brownies? It's not going to be the same. And the end result, sure, it works. It's chocolate, it's a brownie, it's got sugar in it, etc. All those things work, but is it what you actually want? So going and getting a job or taking the easy path. Not that getting a job is a bad thing, but if somebody's doing it because it's the easy path, or getting the GI Bill and going back to school because they don't know what else to do and it's a ready-made brownie mix, here you go. Then you go to school. Well, what are you locking yourself into? So it's the perspective from which we're making those decisions that matters, not necessarily the decision themselves, if you're looking at it from the right perspective. So very few people, like you said, really aim high and really go for it. And just by joining the military and serving the country, you are one of those few people. We are one of those few people. And there's no reason that if somebody couldn't excel in the military, there's no reason why they can't excel in civilian life. And part of that is because it's just adapting. And man, me and you, we adapted our behaviors, our language, our perspective, the way we see the world, the way we see other people, all that stuff got shaped in a different way by joining the military so we could have the successful careers that we did. in the military. The standards being set forth, the physical fitness test. Well, civilians, most of those jobs, including police, some of these other more kind of common jobs that military folks, when they leave the military, come into, like law enforcement, a lot of those places don't even have physical fitness standards. Where in the military, man, that's the base level. That's the that's the first step to even getting started. So if you didn't have that physical capability as a civilian coming into the military, well, how did you learn? You learn by doing wall push-ups, then doing knee push-ups, and then doing regular push-ups just to be able to get in. If you were already there, maybe you wanted to be airborne or something. So you didn't know how to do pull-ups. And so you're like progressed to be able to do pull-ups, to be able to get into airborne or get into special operations community or whatever. And all that was a stepwise process of you adapting. And how did you find yourself, Rob, adapting, going from civilian to military life, back in the day?
Well, I'd never fired a rifle before, so there's slap in the face. Also, I don't know how you guys do in the Army with your drill sergeants, but drill instructors in the Marine Corps have a certain way of talking to you where you're not really aware of all the changes that are happening, right? Because you're just trying to survive boot camp. Um, but in subtle ways, they do. Certainly, physically, I was transformed. I was a lineman in high school, and then I started running in the Marine Corps. So those things, it's a like you said, it's a stepping block approach to learning anything new, and that's the way to approach this transition out. Is look, okay, I've got this bright horizon of possibilities. I can either cave and be fearful of all the opportunities that are in front of me as I transition out, or I can embrace them and be take this chance to be selective, choose my direction of adaptation. So I know I did that on the way out. I it took me a while to get some semblance and some control over it, but basically the virtue of the striking it out on your own route compared to the other ready-made convenient routes, those come at a cost. So the brownies that come in a package come with a bunch of additives that you didn't ask for. You don't get to set the recipe in that case. There's a lot of things that come with it that you just have to swallow, literally. But if you get to make your own recipe, then you're commanding your space. And I know, brother, I mean, just knowing you and knowing me, there were probably several times throughout our military careers where we said, if I was in charge, blank, right? And so that's a common thing, especially for enlisted men like us. Anybody, any veterans out there, you identify with this, I'm sure, because you don't always agree with what the commander or the senior enlisted are doing. The policies they set, that could be in operational terms or just in garrison terms. But now moving forward, if you strike it out on your own, if you can stand on your own 2 feet and achieve and build that self-reliance, then you've got the ability to command and set the conditions that you want moving forward. So what are some attributes and some skills that translate well from what we all did in the military, that are going to carry over nicely to the civilian world? Using that analogy, what do you want to keep in your rucksack that you stored and built up those capabilities throughout your military experience? What is going to translate well to the entrepreneurial route and striking it out on your own? Well, did a little preparation for this one. I brought in, for those Marines out there, JJ did tie buckle. Let me share the pub, guys. The reference is here. Our good man, Chesty Puller. This is just a starting point at all the tools that you have from your military experience that can translate easily to entrepreneurship. Just go down the list. So, I mean, grab one off the list, Jess. What is something that's helped you run your own trading business and be stand on your own 2 feet?
I think right out of the gates is the courage and realizing that, hey, I may not have all the answers on what this is going to look like and what the end result is going to be, but I have the courage to go ahead and forge forward and take that step. Each step along the way kind of shone a light on the next step. And it became really pretty evident. And the more you just do and move forward, the more that path kind of highlights itself for that next step. It's not always obvious, but having that courage to just go ahead and make that first step really just sets everything into motion. And from there, it becomes almost natural. You almost become just what you were supposed to be doing. First saying, if you've ever, when I was in Ranger in dock holdover, I was thinking I was okay, going to be a big, bad, tough Ranger. Well, when you're in holdover and in dock, I was getting farmed out to the regular army, and I was edging sidewalks with my e-tool. Well, that was like going against everything in my body, And so if you're forging a path or you're going down a path that's just going against everything in your body, and it's not what you want to be doing, then the lucky part with being a civilian and being an entrepreneur, you can always change your path. But when you're on it, because it seems this natural evolution. So courage really stands out to me. How about you, brother?
Well, off that list, I mean, there's so many. We had a conversation about the endurance and sticking to it. You're not going to get traction right away, likely with the entrepreneurial route, but you got to stick to it. So the stick to itiveness, the endurance, but I'd say the initiative. And we mentioned this in the last talk we had. Taking the initiative is key if you want to strike it out on your own. Um, we talked about not being able to sit back, rest on your laurels, play video games all day, and expect things to be given to you. That's an institutionalized approach. So while there may not be a JJ did tie buckle in this format of leadership principles that is basically a cookie cutter approach for the transition from military to civilian life, JJ did tie buckle serves you well within the confines of the Marine Corps or the military as an institution. But moving forward, you need to be a little bit more agile than that. So the number one things that we had talked about before that you carry forward is the adaptability, the flexibility. In the Marines, we call that semper gumby, doing what it takes to accomplish the mission. The beautiful part about being your own commander is you get to dictate what the mission is, and you get to determine what mission accomplishment looks like, feels like, and will deliver for the next mission. So you just keep executing. What about discipline? Getting out of the military, brother.
Yeah, well, there's no shortage of discipline in the military, and sometimes it's not always in the direction that you want it to be, but you do have the ability to have the discipline to repeatedly do the same thing over and over because you know the value of it. Now, the nice part about being an entrepreneur is you get to define that value. You don't have a boss or an organization or whatever that's defining the value of something that they want you to do over and over. Lots of times in the military, that was more of a safety thing. Your brother's lives would be in danger if you didn't have the discipline and do this over and over and over, and kind of getting that uniformity, because there's also some discipline around that institutionalizing. Uniform needs to be a certain way, all that kind of stuff, looking the same, kind of losing that individual identity. But by being an entrepreneur and having your own business or forging your own path, you get to have the discipline to the things that you value and not have to be pulled in other places. And discipline in and of itself is extremely difficult for most people to be able to consistently do the same thing over and over, knowing that the outcome down the road is going to be a really beneficial one. Or in the short term, this is keeping me safe by doing this over and over and over. And so it's allowing you to manage risk, whether you're opening up a new restaurant, a food truck, or you're doing some sort of MLM, or you decide to have a trading business, whatever it is. That discipline is something that's already cultivated, and most people don't even have it to begin with. So that discipline's a big one. What do you think about focus?
Focus is crucial, and anybody who's in the military, combat arms, just how important that is when you're in a combat environment, and lives are depending on it, not only your own but especially those of those around you. That focus is really, let's label it what it is. It's focus on the right action for the situation. Situationally dependent, that's going to depend on what the environment around you dictates and the rules of that environment. But focusing on the right way, the effective way to navigate it. So that's, I mean, it's no different whether you're going to be going around selling, exterior paint jobs on houses, or you're going to run a trading business and manage a portfolio of stocks, for like 30 minutes a day. Either way, there's an effective way, and then there's a number of ineffective ways. So find what's effective. Just go for that. Focus on that. There's a grenade range, right? Anybody who if you went through the military, I'm pretty sure you handled a grenade. Maybe not for Navy and Air Force. Sorry, guys, but you get the principle. There's the grenade body. It's got a little spoon on it, and it's got a clip. So what don't we do? We don't take the clip and the spoon off and then count to 5 holding the grenade. That's an ineffective way of deploying a hand grenade. So there is a way that works, and there's a way that doesn't work. All you need to do is focus on the feedback. And for us as traders, that means logging our trades and teasing out the lessons learned throughout to grow for the next trade and get better. And there's staying organized. I think it's one of the most beneficial things we got out of the military is our organizational skills. That carries forward and allows us to focus on the adaptations that are necessary to be more effective moving forward. So learning as you go, and realize that striking it out on your own is a continuous learning process. The learning never stops. So just keep giving yourself that feedback, get organized, and realize you can do this. You can make the adaptation moving forward. If you don't, if you're the type of service member who relied on things handed to you like JJ did Ty Buckle, that's all right. It's not going to come. There's nobody going to hand you a set of leadership traits to exemplify moving forward, but there are resources you can tap into elsewhere. I know you and I, as peers, we share all the time things that we've learned that's effective in trading, that's not. We don't give each other tips. That's not the relationship that we have, and that's not helpful because we do our own homework and we do our own research. But we talk about the overall market, and we talk about some of the fundamental principles that move forward. So peers can be a great resource to tap into if you don't know what the effective way is. Start polling your peers, and if anybody has struck it out on their own, maybe started a business, ask them what it's like to be the CEO of their own company, and just start getting curious. I'd say that's the number one thing to fuel your growth on the outside as far as striking it out on your own. Get curious, inquire as to how other people are doing it, and then take it and make it your own. Because everybody out there is trying to solve a money problem. And we talked about this a minute ago. That money problem is pervasive, and it's never going to stop for as long as society and the economy are shaped the way that they are. That's the environment we live in. We have to make ends meet in financial terms. So everybody's got a money problem, just man. So what are the two routes that you can go to navigate that money problem?
You can go really main two routes, and then there's some gray in between there. But you can trade time for money, or you can have your money make money. And sometimes you can also do trade your time up front for money later. So, for instance, trading your time for money would be going to school, taking the GI Bill. Another thing would be doing the contracting work or going the corporate route. That's trading your time every day, or whatever, 5 days a week, how many ever days you're working. You're trading that time for a certain amount of currency that you have agreed to be hired for. Now, you can also say do like flip houses, for example, and that takes money up front, but it also, if you're going to be doing the rehabbing and refurbishing of all that kind of stuff of some of these fixer uppers, then you put in your time and then you end up selling it. So you put your time up front to make it pretty and presentable and do all the things you need to do to be able to get it sold. And then you sell it, and then boom, there's money at the end of there. Or you fix it up, you hold on to it, and you rent it out. And then now your money's making money because you put that time up front, get in a place to the level where you could get a certain dollar amount that you're looking for it. There's still some time commitment involved in that, whether you're going to hire a company to take care of your renters, or you're going to do it, or if you're going to do the repairs as time goes on. So there's different balances of that. The other thing you can do is just have your money make money. So trading business, as the example, is you put your money in, you're systematic about what you do in the stock market, and that money creates more money. And you just rinse and repeat. It's like a spin cycle in a dryer. As you get systematic with it, it's just the same thing every day for short bits of time to be able to get you to where you want to go. And so there's different varying degrees to that. And don't get set on one way. If you hear somebody how they fix a house, fix and flip a house, or how they choose and how they've rationalized to themselves how they handle the renters, whether they do it or they farm it out to an agency, or the rationalization that somebody came up with to go the corporate route or become a trader, just take a step back and ask yourself, what are you seeing, and what do you see it being for you? Because there's so many different niches in this wide ranging opportunity of getting out of the military, that you can actually find your own or make your own. Because you know let's see, it's been a while, over a decade ago since I've been out. And at the time I was like, oh, everything's already been done. Like, I mean, what am I going to come up with a new idea? I mean, come on, get real.
Yeah.
And then here we are 10 years later. iPhones didn't even exist. You think it's all been done, and it hasn't anywhere close to been done. And there's all these niches continually opening up. So keep that in mind and think about it as far as your time versus your money, and kind of come up with a ratio of where you want to be with that, because then that'll direct a lot of where you head, is that relationship between time and money. Now, Rob, even though there's different niches that you can get yourself into and you can kind of make your own, what is what's one way for people to kind of understand how to approach this money problem? What's some resources that they can utilize?
Well, first and foremost, the firsthand experience, I think, is going to be the strongest feedback loop, to use our systematic terminology. So try something. For me, that was Domino's. For you, that was UPS. And we both did the education route. We got a taste of that, and then we ended up on this third route of striking it out on your own. So firsthand experience. Make sure you're paying attention and you're aware as you try it, as you take a job or you go on job interviews or you start applying to colleges. Just be aware of the experience and be open to, hey, I don't like this, or this is kind of cool, I do like this is really meaningful to me, because you might surprise yourself. Recognize that the money problem is always going to be there, but the simplest way you can uh, is to do some backwards planning. Work back from a monthly amount, that how much you need to have incoming, based off of what's outgoing, and then you can adapt from there and scale up or scale down however you need to. Whether the assets are stocks in your portfolio, or employees underneath you, or houses that you're renting out, they're all assets. They're all things that you're recruiting onto your team. So circling back to what we talked about before, you're getting out, you want to strike it out on your own, you're in command of your own situation, you got what you wanted, you're in charge. So choose the route that fits best for you. We all have different personality traits, that are, some of it is linked to our individual DNA and individual experiences and upbringings, and all of our vastly different experiences throughout the military. So identify your situation, study it, observe the environment around you, figure out what the rules of this new environment are. No defeatist attitude. Nothing has already been done 100%. There's always going to be room for you. So assess the environment and figure out what's going to work by probing, testing. Try it out first, and don't get over your skis on this one. You don't need to rush in, and certainly there is no advice. There's no trading advice that ever comes from Trader Genius or Jess or myself. Putting your entire savings on a cryptocurrency might not be the most risk averse conservative way to go about this transition out. That may be impulsive. So choose your route wisely and take your time. I mean, what organizational skills do you have that have helped you run your own trading business and be that kind of standalone, self-reliant dude?
Yeah, having the focus on where I want to head. That's the big thing. And always getting having that that far off gaze for where I want to head, but checking in down at my feet each step of the way, going, okay, is this lining up to that? It is okay, yeah, it is lining up to that. And so keep moving that. If it becomes evident that it's not lining up to that end result, it's okay, how do we get back on track? And that comes with that measuring, being systematic about what I do, and defining the values that are important for me to be able to get from A to B. And so having those, and that comes with experience, you can kind of show up with some of those kind of basic understandings. But as you go along and you move along the path, you can get more detailed in and go, okay, this stuff really matters. This stuff kind of matters, and this stuff is something that I don't really have a whole lot of control over, so I need to accept it. But I can do these other things over here that allow me to manage what it is I'm doing, so I can get to where I want to go. And one of those things that you were just talking about, Rob, was the probing. And it's really important to be able to do that probing, because you don't know what you don't know, and typically not until you experience it. But one of the things that I think you and I both share is the stick to itiveness, and also the bullheadedness that's sometimes married to that stick to itiveness. And so maybe it might take, I'll just say for myself, I'll give an example. First 3 months into PA school, I knew this wasn't for me. I knew it. And my stick to itiveness and my commitment to finish things that I start, I went through the next 2 years of school to get that degree going, this isn't it. So I delayed my progress into another area for 2 years because I committed myself to saying, hey, I'm going to go do this. That's not what it's about. When you get out, it's about you finding what's right for you. And so if you get into something and you go, you know what, this really isn't my bag. I really don't enjoy this. It's pretty common in college. People change their majors all the time, and that's accepted. Go the biology route. Ooh, I don't like that. You go the business right. Ooh, I don't like that. I'm going to go the whatever, the geology route. Oh man, this is awesome. I love it. That's accepted in college, but it kind of, we pigeonhole ourselves when we say, no, I made a commitment. I've attached my identity to this idea. I've told my family this is what I'm doing. I told my friends this is what I'm doing. I told them about how much I love it. So I got to finish this through, or be succumb to that idea. No, not at all. If it's something you get into and you're like, man, this isn't it. Hey, man, back out. It's all good. It's all good. And if you've done any CQB or any kind of combat related experience and other stuff in the military as well too, is you already have the ability to be systematic in a dynamic environment. So for instance, with CQB, there's a certain way that my team all agree this is how we flow into rooms and this is how we flow through buildings. Well, that's great. But sometimes you come up to situations that are really dynamic, and you got to be able to, on the move, be able to reorient yourself and adjust to make the best risk managed decision to be able to handle the situation. And military backgrounds, you've already got that in spades. And so it's no different striking out on your own, being systematic, trying to control or manage what it is that you can, and know that you have the skills and ability to be dynamic when that environment changes or shifts, that you can rely on yourself because you've already made these decisions and these judgment calls in the past. And hey, it's all good. If you fall down, scrape a knee, bump your head, just get back up on the horse, reevaluate your situation, and start moving forward. So it really does take time. And within that time, it's about getting organized. It's about finding what it is that really matters to you and being able to kind of define those parameters to be able to move forward with it. Rob, what did you think about when you kind of struck out on your own as far as that organization and kind of finding that right fit for you?
Yeah, it was a process. Let's just put it that way, brother. And going off of what you said, yeah, we all train to skills like that, like CQB and flowing through a house, right? But the huge benefit of this new environment in the civilian world, 99.9% of the time, is that it's not life and death on the line. It's not. So don't squeeze so tight to getting it right immediately right out of the gates as you transition out of the military. You're not going to hit a home run in your first at bat in the big leagues. Okay, cool. So don't worry about that. Don't put that kind of pressure on yourself because that's not going to help you adapt. Adaptability, why do we keep going back to that word in the organizational skills? Is because this is one massive change. You nailed it, brother. We had huge changes going into the military. Well, it's no wonder that coming out of the military is a huge change as well. Give it time. Change takes time. Realize you aren't the same person you were a year ago or even yesterday. We are all constantly changing. So give yourself some room to change. I'd say that's the number one thing I did. We talked about it in the last conversation. Gave myself some time and space with the GI Bill and allowed me to figure out first who I was, what this new environment was, and where I fit inside this environment. So I'd say that's the approach that's most helpful is, hey, start to look at different areas of the civilian world where you might want to fit in, figure out what works in that environment or doesn't. Ask yourself, hey, do I have the skills that are going to make me successful in that environment? And if not, start building up the skills that you need. But try something. Try something in a deliberate, focused, organized fashion. Um, and the payoff is autonomy. You get what you wanted. You get to be in charge. You get to be the shot caller of your own lifestyle, of your own life plan. So shoot an azimuth that is relevant to you and is in line with what you want more of going forward as you grow. Nobody's going to micromanage you. That can be a blessing and a curse. But there's no free lunch. You're going to have to work for it and work with it either way. So keep that accountability that you practiced in the military and take the opportunity, seize the opportunity to command your own destiny, both in a financial sense towards that money problem and how you're going to solve it, but also within and what kind of a man or woman do you want to be moving forward. Um, I would say, just in closing, brother, I'd say aim high. The number one takeaway from my transition, and like you said, it's been almost 10 years for me that I've been out. Um, Aim high because settling for less is beneath you. If you excelled in the military, there's no reason you can't excel in civilian life. So don't take that. You mentioned kind of a defeatist attitude earlier. You don't need that. That doesn't belong in you. You're better than that. You're above that. So rise above, change, adapt, and keep your focus on the azimuth, the compass heading that you have set for yourself, and get there. Any last words to share with the folks, brother?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, for me, being able to be on my own has really allowed me to define my own mission, my own purpose, and bring my own value to the community, to other people, by being able to express myself in the manner that I wish to do so. And that's through this entrepreneur kind of mindset and really trying to help and grow other people. But everybody's got their own mission and purpose. And so by striking out on your own, you get to define that. And that is the value of the homemade brownies. The value of making your own meal is you get to define what that end result is as you taste it oh so sweet off the fork of life. It's right there. You created it, you made it, and it's something to be really proud of that you've been able to do. So in closing, don't be don't be hesitant. Have the courage and the tenacity to just move forward and get after it. Shoot that azimuth and figure it out. The more time and attention you give to things, hey, the more things are going to become evident in that area. So give it time and attention that it deserves and that it needs.
Excellent, brother. Yeah. We have more discussions for veterans coming up. We'll get into more specifics on business, trading business, and some tools and techniques that can really help you through this adjustment period and come out on the other side looking the way you want to. Take care, guys.